Christmas Day, 1989. As families across Europe opened presents, Romania was watching a firing squad execute its dictator live on national television. Only days before, Nicolae Ceaușescu stood on a balcony, defiant. In minutes, the crowd turned. The regime began to crack. Soldiers switched sides. Protesters took the streets. Ceaușescu fled. He didn't get far. What happened next was a revolution driven by anger, despair, and betrayal. And in the end, this man who had governed by fear met his fate in a cold courtyard, caught by his own collapsing empire. Chapter 1. The Man Who Became a God. Many Romanians hoped for reform when Nicolae Ceaușescu took over in 1965. He portrayed himself as an independent of the Soviet Union and was even critical of its invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. The West praised him. He was even received by Queen Elizabeth, dined with Nixon, shook hands around the world. Meanwhile, however, back home, something darker was growing. Ceaușescu built a regime obsessed with control. His picture appeared in schoolrooms, factories, and on every TV broadcast. His speeches were endless, shouted from glistening balconies to orchestrated applause. The people referred to it as Ceaușima, after Hiroshima, as he demolished historic neighborhoods to build his dream, the People's Palace, one of the largest buildings in the world. He banned abortion and birth control so he could build the populace, leading to thousands of unwanted children in state-run orphanages. They rationed food. They shut off the electricity. Surveillance cameras watched everything. And his secret police, the Securitate, created one of the most feared domestic spying networks in the world. Romania transformed into a prison, disguised as a republic. And at the heart of it all was one man, untouchable, unchallenged, and worshipped like a god. Before we move on to the next section, please don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video so far. Chapter 2. A Nation on the Brink. By the late 1980s, Romania wasn't just struggling, it was suffocating. Ceaușescu had chosen to pay off the country's foreign debt, a policy internationally praised. But it came at a brutal cost domestically. Imports were slashed. Basic goods vanished. People waited in freezing lines for bread, oil, and milk, only to be turned away empty-handed. At night, cities went dark. Television was reduced to 2 hours of propaganda. Apartments were cold. Hospitals lacked medicine. Shelves were bare. But the broadcast kept smiling. The regime marched out huge crowds to cheer Ceaușescu. His wife, Elena, was hailed as a scientific genius when she had no qualifications. Throughout the country, schools would teach children to worship of what was called the presidential couple. Dissent was not merely dangerous, it was inconceivable. And yet below the surface, rage brewed. Whispers passed in queues. Families covered radios with pillows to hear forbidden foreign broadcast. The Securitate was everywhere, but fear was losing its grip. The system had turned into a theater of the absurd. At the top sat one man and his wife, convinced of their brilliance, while the people froze and starved in silence. It was as if Romania were a pressure cooker, secured tight, and the heat kept rising. Chapter 3. The Revolution Ignites. On December 16, 1989, several citizens met to show their support for Pastor Laszlo Tőkés, a Hungarian Protestant minister who attacked the regime. When the authorities threatened to evict him, the people refused to let it happen. Protest turned into defiance. The crowd grew. Soldiers arrived. Shots were fired. Blood spilled. The regime believed that fear would come back. But this time, it didn't. The news quickly leaked out, despite media blackouts. Within hours, thousands were on the streets. The army began firing, killing dozens. Some of the corpses were set in flames by militants, and others were thrown into the rivers. But it was too late. Romania was awake. Ceaușescu attempted to calm matters the only way he knew, by appearing on a balcony in Bucharest for a speech to the people. He marched onto the balcony of the Central Committee building in the main square in the center of town. He stood there for a moment, waiting for applause. Instead, they started booing, and then they started chanting. He stood there, bewildered for a second, before he raised his hands above his head, a desperate look on his face, shivering figure. "Hello, comrades!" The cameras cut. The mask had slipped, and now everyone saw through it. On the very next day, chaos engulfed the capital. Protesters fought the loyalist troops. They built barricades. The fires were lit. The army finally cracked. Some servicemen rebelled. Some kept following the orders, even for hours or days. Finally, the decisive moment came. The military itself turned on the dictator. Ceaușescu and Elena escaped by helicopter from the rooftop of the Communist Party Central Committee building on December 22nd. It was cinematic, surreal. From the sky, they gazed down on a country burning. They didn't get far. Forced to land by the army, they were captured, beaten, and handed over to the new provisional government. The Ceaușescus were gods no more. They were prisoners, confused, disheveled, and frightened. Romania reached a boiling point, and the people have finally decided to scream after years of silence. What started as a protest for the protection of one man became a nationwide revolt, swift, bloody, and unstoppable. The most closed society in Eastern Europe had just televised its dictator's fall in real time. Chapter 4. The Trial That Lasted 1 Hour. On December 25, 1989, as much of the world was unwrapping gifts, Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu were marched into a makeshift courtroom inside a military base in Târgoviște. The trial was a formality. The charges ranged from genocide to sabotage of the national economy and illegal acquisition of wealth. The proof was ambiguous, the process chaotic. The Ceaușescus refused to accept the court's authority. Elena screamed at the judges. Nicolae sang the communist anthem. But there was never any question about the sentence. They were dragged outside within an hour. A camera followed. Soldiers had slammed them into a wall. No blindfolds, no final words, just gunfire. The video was watched around the world. Here, this man, who people have feared for 24 years, fell in the snow, riddled with bullets. It wasn't just justice. It was symbolic exorcism. An entire nation cleansing itself of fear in a single moment on television. And for many, it was not real until they saw it. Want to understand the world better? Start with history and subscribe to our channel. Chapter 5. After the fall, what changed? The execution did put an end to Ceaușescu's reign, but not to Romania's agony. In the ensuing days, the streets of Bucharest and other cities teemed with celebration, confusion, and gunfire. The National Salvation Front seized power, with former Communist Party official Ion Iliescu in control, promising free elections and democracy. But many protesters wondered, revolution or merely a change of faces? Although the Securitate was dismantled formally, much of its network remained intact. Trials were promised, few materialized. Files were hidden, lost, or burned. The 1990s were economically difficult years for Romania. From corruption and inflation to unemployment, the nation was plagued. The generation who grew up under a dictatorship had to learn what freedom was and how fleeting it could be. But from that moment, something changed that could never be reversed. For the first time in decades, the Romanian people have had their say, and the world has been able to hear. The voices have brought down the person who once desired nothing but silence. And in the darkness, those voices have not fallen silent. Nicolae Ceaușescu did not die in combat. He died before a camera. His domain melted away in days, a reminder that no regime, however brutal, is immune to consequence forever. But what comes after tyranny? Justice? Chaos? Or something in between? Romania's revolution reminds us, the fall of a dictator is merely just the start to holding an entire nation accountable. What do you think? Were the people ever served justice? Or was it entirely vengeance? Drop your answers below. And if you want more stories of history's turning points, don't forget to like and subscribe. Here's another video history buffs enjoyed watching. Goodbye for now.